everyone. If you are tuning in, welcome to the University of Tennessee CSP Hangout. We are so excited that you're joining us and that you're interested in the University of Tennessee College Student Personnel Program. My name is Brittany Wright, and I am the Vice President of Recruitment for the program. So you'll probably be seeing and hearing from me quite a bit within the next couple weeks before someone else takes over my position. In the meantime, I'm very excited to be joined by three of my colleagues in the program who are going to be answering the many questions that you all submitted. So thank you to everyone who submitted questions. We have over 30. Hopefully we'll be able to get to them all. If for some reason we do not, I'm going to offer up our email that you are more than welcome to email at any time with any questions. The email, and I'll say it again later as well, is CSPA, so CSPA is what we call it, CSPA@utk.edu. So I'll start off by introducing myself, and then my three colleagues will introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into all of the questions that you all submitted. So as I mentioned, my name is Brittany Wright, and I'm originally from San Diego, California. I did my undergrad at Boise State University, where I studied communications with conflict management. And I am a second year in the program, and my assistantship is in the Center for Student Engagement, where I work with the Campus Events Board, specifically the entertainment side, doing all of the late night and entertainment programming for the campus. Super fun, keeps me on my toes. And I will have Jamal introduce himself next.
Hello everyone, my name is Jamal Cooks. I am currently a first year here in the College Student Personnel Program. I'm originally from Tampa, Florida. I went to my undergrad at the University of Central Florida down in Orlando. I worked in university housing as an assistant hall director. So if anything happens, I'm holding this very nice area coverage phone right now, so I may disappear from this chat should I get a phone call. But I'm here to help answer your questions. I work a lot with just all the residents that live in the building. I have an executive board of Residence Hall Association that I manage. I also manage and train all the office assistants that work in the building. And of course, all the resident assistants, I help co-supervise them as well. And I'm gonna let Mary Kate take it on next.
Hi everyone, my name is Mary Kate Meshach. I'm originally from Bettendorf, Iowa. It's a little town on the Mississippi River. I went to Iowa State University for my undergrad, and currently at the University of Tennessee, I'm working with the Office of Sorority and Fraternity Life. So I help to advise members of our Panhellenic Council, directors on that council, and then a bunch of different presidents throughout our community. So like Brittany's, it's definitely fun and it keeps me on my toes. Chris, you can take it away.
My name is Chris Shuping. I'm from Greenville, South Carolina, and I attended the University of South Carolina. Here I work in the Arts and Sciences Advising Office, which is the home for all of our university's undecided students also. And I also teach one of the First Year Studies 101 classes. I think that was everything, Brittany, I think. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome, thanks y'all. Okay, so those three wonderful people, along with myself, will be answering the questions tonight. The first one is a pretty easy question, and it was, why did you choose to come to the University of Tennessee College Student Personnel Program? So who wants to answer the question? I will have Jamal. There you go.
Hi everyone. For me, I decided to come to the University of Tennessee College Student Personnel Program just after doing a lot of research and really getting to know the people here at interview weekend and seeing what they had to offer in terms of assistantships, area of living. I really wanted to see what it was like in the South, because Florida isn't really the South. And I just felt so welcome here. I enjoyed the classes that were offered. The availability of assistantships was great. And I just kind of fell in love with the campus. So that's why I chose University of Tennessee Knoxville.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so do either of the other two want to answer the question, or y'all good? Cool. Okay, so we'll head into, there were a bunch of questions regarding assistantships, which is a big topic, of course, when you're looking at grad school. And so just a refresher, assistantships are typically what you hold that you work 20-ish hours a week for the university in some capacity, and that's where all of our different roles come in, along with many others. And you usually receive a stipend and then your assistantship covered. And so one of the questions regarding that was, does your assistantship cover out-of-state tuition? And the answer is yes. That's how all four of us, and along with many others in our cohorts, are here. But a couple of the other questions regarding assistantships is, how are graduate assistants viewed by professional staff? So I will throw that over to Mary Kate.
I have actually been very impressed with the way that our graduate assistants, Brittany and I especially, work within the Division of Student Life. And I think that that gives us a lot of easy access to some of our upper administration. Just one example, we have tailgates that we host every Friday in the Dean of Students office for the entire division employees. And so every Friday we get to interact with the Dean of Students. Sometimes the Vice Chancellor will come by, Assistant, Associate Dean of Students, all of those kinds of people are there. And so I think that just even in these casual settings, you get to know some upper administration, and that makes being more of a colleague, that makes that an easier transition. They definitely respect you and your work. And then those casual instances really help to create some more commodity. So.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I definitely, just on a personal note too, echo that. I think in my office here in the Center for Student Engagement, we are definitely viewed on a similar level with professional staff, just because we do a lot of the same duties, work with a lot of the same students. They put a lot of trust and faith in the graduate assistants here at the university, which I know a lot of my peers would echo as well. It's very nice. And I think it kind of helps that transition from going from undergraduate student to graduate student or graduate assistant a lot easier. So yeah, the next question was, what kind of graduate assistantships are available to students in the CSP program? So I will throw that over to Chris.
As I mentioned earlier, I have an advising assistantship, which is a little bit rare among CSP programs. Only one other program that I applied to had that. So that was a big selling point in me coming to UT, was this was the kind of assistantship that I wanted. I would also expect there to be openings in university housing this year. Some of the second year students are assistant hall directors. Also, some other common ones are in the first year studies office. The Center for Leadership and Service will have a vacancy in next year. There should be one or two in Brittany's office. Oh, and two in Mary Kate's office, in the Office of Sorority and Fraternity Life. There'll be one for the Panhellenic Council and for IFC. But I'll turn this back over to Brittany and see if she's thought of any other assistantships that I missed.
Awesome. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of really awesome available assistantships next year, just because if you think about it, there'll be about 17 or 18 of us second years leaving next year. So all of those will hopefully be available, along with more campus partners hopefully offering some more. The list isn't solidified yet, but we have many across the Division of Student Life and in other offices on campus. So rec sports, I know housing was mentioned, advising, leadership and service, student engagement, and a bunch more at the International House, things like that. The list will not be solidified and published, most likely for at least another month or so, just because assistantship providers need time to figure out how many offer and things like that. So be on the lookout. As soon as it is published, it will be up on our website, and we'll try to post about it on social media as well. So if you're applying to the program, stay tuned. And if you have any questions about a specific office, always feel free to reach out and we can try to give you a better idea if it's going to be available with an assistantship or not. Well, hopefully that covers most of the assistantships. The last question we had regarding it was that if you're not given an assistantship or decide not to take one, what other alternatives are there for grad school students to be able to pay for school? And also, since UT does not pay for fees with the assistantships, how large are the fees usually each semester? So I'll answer the question about the fees, and then I'll throw the question about alternatives over to one of those three. The fees are almost $1,000 each semester, which isn't too awful if you think about that really being one of the bulk things you'd pay for the year. I know I personally take out a small loan each year to help pay for those, but it's definitely doable. So it's about $1,000, and that's paying for a lot here on campus. And I'll have one of the three answer about alternatives. Maybe Jamal, you want to take it?
Yeah, so kind of going off what Brittany said about the fees, I know that they offer payment plans here as well. So what I did is I broke my fees down into payment plans. So every time I got paid, I would just put a little bit towards there, so I didn't have to take out a loan, but it just helped me so I didn't have to pay it all at once. Other alternatives, if you don't get an assistantship, typically in the past, everyone in the program has had an assistantship. We try to work with as many campus partners so that everybody who comes to the program gets an assistantship. However, if you didn't get one or you just chose not to take one, you could try to work on campus and still be able to take the classes by having like a full-time job on campus or something like that. And then other than that, you can also just work off campus, work around, see what you can do to help supplement the payment. But pretty much everybody that's been in the program in the past couple of years has had an assistantship.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamal. Okay, so we keep getting more questions about this, which I'm excited. You all keep submitting questions. So thanks if you're viewing in and submitting more. We had a question about if health insurance is included. Yes, it is. And so that is definitely a big perk that you would not have to be paying for health insurance. It's part of your assistantship package. So like I said, you usually get a full tuition, that is in and out of state tuition, a stipend, which the stipend typically varies anywhere from $1,000-ish to about $1,300 a month. And then of course health insurance is included as well. But definitely each assistantship has their own individualized package. So if you were to come and interview for them, those are good questions to ask the individual providers for sure. Other questions included were what happened if you live off campus. So Jamal, of course, lives on campus because he works for housing, but Mary Kate and Chris live off. So do you each want to talk about where you live? Maybe how the cost of living is, that kind of thing, if you're close, far from campus, that kind of thing. So I'll throw it to Mary Kate first.
Okay, well, actually, I'm home right now, as Chris is, I think, too. But I actually live with Brittany Wright, who you've met tonight. And so we live out in West Knoxville. It's called the Willows. It's a nice gated community. But don't be super impressed with us because we only pay about $500 a month, which for me, coming from Ames, Iowa, which really isn't that large, I'm still paying about the same in rent that I was to live in like a 3-bedroom apartment there. So housing is very comparable to other college towns, I think, that you would be used to. We get a lot of perks. We have a swimming pool that's open all year round, which again, to me, coming from the north is ridiculous. But we have a gym that's open all the time. And then we have, we pay for our own in-house or in-apartment washer and dryer, which is really nice too. So West Knox is probably, depending on how fast you drive, you can echo this later, Brittany, if you want, but probably a 10 to 15 minute commute. But we are kind of close to a lot of restaurants, mall, movie theater, which Brittany and I really enjoy. So West Knox, best Knox. I'll throw it over to you, to Chris, to talk about the rest of that, though.
Yeah, so I live just off of downtown in the Volunteer Landing area. And we have a lovely riverfront view from our apartment, which in many other cities would cost me an arm and a leg. But our 3-bedroom apartment here is just under $1,600 a month, which was an increase from what it was our first year. But we have a pool that stays open all year too. We're right on the Greenway, which is like the urban walkways around the city. So that's a huge draw also. And my commute is super short, but then there are other areas of town that some of our other CSP friends have lived in North Knox and in South Knox too. So variety of options at different price points, but even the nice stuff isn't necessarily within outside of your range.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. And yes, Mary Kate is my lovely roommate. Thanks, guys. We really love where we live. But there are lots of great apartment, house options. People in our program, as I said, there's lots of housing assistantships, so they live on campus, but there's many that live off campus, and it's a great experience, which actually is a good transition to some of these other questions y'all been asking of what is there to do in Knoxville. So I'll throw that over to maybe Chris. Yes, Chris wants to answer it.
So fall is definitely football time in Tennessee, and the CSP cohorts love going to the football games in Neyland Stadium, which if you've never been in Knoxville is massive. 102,000 fans in orange and white. But also other times of year, in spring through the fall, there's the farmers market downtown, which is great if you're into having local cheap produce. Also, there's lots of hiking close by. We're really close to the Smokies and Gatlinburg. If you need your amusement park fixed, you can go to Dollywood. But then also there are other manageable day trips like Nashville. Mary Kate went to Asheville today, actually. So lots of cool things close by. And I'll throw it over to Mary Kate because I know how much she loves talking about Knoxville too.
He's so right, I do. So some other things that that we do, I guess, as a cohort too, we definitely have tried to play trivia together about once a week to keep our brain power high, but also it's really fun. We just get together. Not always do we do really well either, but it's just fun. There's movie theaters all over town. So I'm a movie person and that's really awesome, as well as like some artsy movie theaters where they play some that aren't necessarily streamlined. I love country music and just live music in general. So we have the Tennessee Theater, the Bijou Theater, and then some outdoor kind of arena space. So there's always music and shows happening in Knoxville, which are amazing. And then to echo what Chris said, we're so in the middle of everything. You're 2 to 3 hours from a lot of different places. So road trips, either with the cohort or I have people come into town a lot. So taking those little day trips can spice up your vacations that your family or friends may be having to Tennessee. I can throw this over to whoever.
Thanks. Okay, so we'll come back to maybe talking a little bit more about the Knoxville community as well as UT, but I want to make sure I'm answering all your questions about the program as well. So we'll kind of go back and forth to balance it all out. A bunch of people asked about the faculty as well as our classes. So how about each of you talk about maybe your favorite class? I know, Jamal, you've only had 3 so far. He's our first year here, but if you each want to talk about maybe your favorite class and why, and then maybe talk about the faculty-student relationship, maybe how that is as well. So we'll start with Jamal.
Well, yeah, so I've only had 3 classes so far, but I have really enjoyed all of them. My favorite so far, I would probably say student development theory. It's just really interesting to see how you can apply different theories to different stages of your life, and not only have you noticed them now as you're in grad school or in undergrad, but you kind of can relate them back to other times in your life as well, which I found to be very interesting. never did any psychology or anything like that in my undergrad, but it was still really interesting to kind of see that now. But I think the class that I'm most looking forward to is multiculturalism, just going through and seeing how we all aren't experiencing the same things at all times. Everybody has a different experience, and I feel like that class itself is going to be very important for a lot of people in my cohort, and it'll be a very trying time, but it'll also help make our experience better. We'll grow closer as a group. As far as faculty relations go, I feel like I can go up and talk to any of our faculty members at any time. I went to Dr. McCoy's office last Friday, and we just had lunch. We just chatted about life, and I feel like you can do that with anybody, and it's just a really great experience to be able to not only know your professors, but be able to personally just send them a text message or shoot them an email, and they'll make time to come and talk to you and see you and make sure you have everything you need to be successful. And I always feel like I can get that at any time here at University of Tennessee.
Okay, so my favorite class that I have had so far, we're currently in a higher education law course. And at first I was dreading it. I thought that we were gonna have to read a lot and that it was just gonna be dry and boring. But I honestly feel like I'm in an episode of Scandal almost every week. Like, it's just so intriguing to me. It always keeps my interest. And it's obviously very relevant as well to the different issues and different things that are going on college campuses right now. So that one is probably one of my favorites that we've taken. As far as professor relationships, it's a lot of what Jamal just said, but I feel like the professors truly care about you as a person. I think that grad school can be really, really tough, especially throwing work and just personal problems on top of all of that. And they've always been super understanding of the things that we're going through and what we may need. Also, you may be able to tell so far, but I'm not always 100% serious all the time, and they're okay with that as well. So I can send Dr. McCoy or Dr. Biddix a meme or something like that in an email, or, you know, put a cool rap in one of my text messages, and they'll appreciate that, which is awesome when you're working with students our age.
And my favorite class at the moment is our organization and administration class. Like what Mary Kate said about our higher ed law class, I didn't know what to expect from it, but our professors had tons of guest speakers come in from high places. Like, we've had the system president one week, and some of like the general council members and board of trustees members. And it's been very eye-opening to understand how they view how the university operates from that high level compared to where we'll be coming from. And it's given me a new way of viewing what they do and understanding what kinds of thought processes they have to go through, whether it's pressure from trustees or parents or legislators. These are all issues that they encounter. Also, building on what Jamal and Mary Kate said, our professors even like having us over at their houses. I feel like once a semester so far, we've had like a class visit to one of their houses, usually at the end of the semester. But that's a great way to get to know them too in their own environment, and it's really great to see them being willing to open themselves up to that too.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Okay, so just a couple other questions that I'll touch on very briefly. Someone asked, what type of program is CSP? So you'll hear often a lot of times that programs are counseling-based, administration, social justice, all that kinds of stuff. Tennessee here, technically we are theory to practice is what we're known as, just meaning that, as you've heard, a lot of what we do, we apply to our assistantships and the real work that we do with students. We are required to complete practicum hours outside of our assistantships, as well as a lot of us, we volunteer within the division. We do a lot of professional development opportunities, things like that. So it definitely is about taking what you learn in the classroom and applying it outside. But we don't have, per se, a type of program, just so you all know. But we do try to incorporate, I'd say, all those aspects throughout the classes. So counseling, administration, social justice, diversity, all that almost comes into each class in a way, if that helps a little bit with that. Someone asked, as out-of-state students, was it easy for you all to make a support group? So Jamal, I'll throw that over to you.
I think for me, it was especially easy with this cohort model to make a support system. I know that when I came in, I knew that I was going to have the same 20-odd people that we'd be taking the same classes all throughout this whole experience. And I gotta say, it's been a great time from day one, meeting everybody and just being able to connect with each person on a different level, and knowing that you can go to any of them and have all your needs met. We're going to see Dr. Strange on Thursday, and it's just one of those things that without this model, I don't know if I would have been able to have such a unique connection with everybody, because it kind of forced us to talk to each other, but it also was really helpful because even though we were from so far away, we were still able to kind of have a group when we came into a brand new experience.
Awesome. Another question was, how do summers look while in the program, before entering the program and after the first year? So I'll maybe throw that over to Mary Kate if you can talk about what you did this last summer, and then I can maybe echo some.
Yeah, so I actually had the opportunity to stay here in Knoxville this summer. I was given an opportunity to work with the Office of Orientation and Transition here at UT. I'd never really worked in orientation before, but it was a NOTA internship here, and I was in charge of planning some of our late night programming for our students that were coming through orientation, as well as working with the whole orientation team and the orientation leader staff. So I was able to keep my apartment, to still have a stipend and do everything like that without going to class, but putting in some work here and making further networking, further connections here on UT's campus.
Awesome. Yeah. And just going off that too. So a lot of times it depends on your individual assistantship, what that means for your summer. So some assistantships require you to stay for 12 months. So you do some kind of work in the summer or during the summer, and then others allow you to leave for a time during the summer. So, and that can be both before entering the program and after your first year. So I know for me, I did an internship the summer before entering the program, and then I also did an ACUI internship this last summer as well. And that's something that's really popular with a bunch of people in our cohorts. They're often try to do summer internships with ACUI, NOTA, which you heard Mary Kate mention. We had someone do a NACA internship in Boston. So really, stuff all over. And then others, of course, will stay here in Knoxville and do work within their assistantship or within other offices on campus, usually as practicum work or experiences. So I promise you'll stay busy. It'll just depend in what way that you do over the summer. But there's definitely some flexibility, usually depending on the assistantship. Some other questions that we had were about the thesis and the capstone that have to do. So basically, a lot of programs have some kind of culminating project, and we do as well. So I'll maybe throw that to Chris to talk about briefly.
Yes, so we have two options at the moment, the thesis option and the capstone project option. And the capstone project is intended to be a project that you could either be implementing on UT's campus, or it would be something that you could have tailor-made and kind of ready to take with you when you went on to your next job. Typically, it's not supposed to be related to your assistantship or practicum that you've completed. Mine, I am creating a supplemental study abroad workshop for students who identify as LGBT+. And that's what I'm doing with mine. There are others who are creating like civility programs for like fraternity and sororities, but thesis goes, those follow the guidelines set out by the graduate school, and those are supersede anything that our program does. I think in our cohort, and Mary Kate and Brittany can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have 2, maybe 3 people completing a thesis. And in the cohort before ours, 1 student graduated with a thesis. But those would probably be best suited for people who want to get their doctorate. I know that's not in the forefront of my plans, but I can turn it over to Mary Kate or Brittany if they have anything to add.
I think that covers it. Thanks, Chris. And if you all have any questions, further questions about the thesis or the capstone project, once again, always feel free to email the program or ask further questions once accepted or anything like that. We'd be more than happy to answer them. I know it's kind of a confusing thing and it seems so far away, but because you're like, that's in 2 years, but it kind of sneaks up on you, which I'm realizing as a second year, it's closer than I thought. So we'll answer a couple last questions, and then I'll maybe have each of these 3 wise CSP people leave you with maybe 1 tidbit of advice as you go into this application process and interview weekends and the craziness that ensues with all of that. So one of the last 2 questions that I'll have us answer is, what are some of the professional development programs you have attended and or hosted? So conferences, etc. So I'll give that over to Mary Kate, Chris? Yeah, Mary Kate. Let's start with Mary Kate.
So last year I went to 1 conference. It was in Dallas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's the Association of Fraternity and Sorority Advisors, or AFA, if you are familiar. It was a really great experience, and I actually got a scholarship to go ahead and do that. So that was exciting to be able to get some funding for that. Last year I went and I learned a lot. I met a lot of people. And then this year I'm really excited to be able to go back and give back to that association and be on their grad staff. And this year it's in Boston. So again, kind of creating those networks, those ties with other colleagues and professionals in the field that I'm working in currently and looking towards getting a job in the future. So that was definitely one that I could fit into my schedule and has a lot of ties to what I'm currently doing right now.
Last spring, I went to the regional NACADA conference in Chattanooga. And if you're not familiar, NACADA is the Academic Advising Association. My office paid for our grad assistants to go in addition to our full-time staff members. So that was pretty great. I think they were probably more willing to do that because I presented with one of our fellow CSP grad students who works in the office. So that was a good professional experience for me to present at my first conference, which was scary, but you can do it too. And also the previous fall, I attended SACSA, which is basically NASPA Region 3, the Southeast. And that was held in Greenville, South Carolina last year. So that was good for me. Since I work in academic affairs, I had less knowledge of a lot of those student affairs issues since that was my first semester too. We hadn't delved into all of them in class. But there are definitely opportunities for you, and as part of the College Student Personnel Association, you can apply for travel funds for conferences. So that can be a good way to supplement it if it would otherwise be a financial hardship for you to go. I'll turn it back over to Brittany.
Awesome. Hi. And I'll echo that too. So I went to NASPA, which is one of the huge overarching conferences that is in our profession. And so NASPA was really great. I'd never been to a large conference before. And I also got that paid for too through my assistantship and through some funding from the graduate school, which was really cool. And then every year too, two graduate students or assistants in my office go to NACA South, which that's the National Association for Campus Activities, and it's the Southern Regional Conference. So that's how that went, and it was a really, really great opportunity, and I'm excited that I got to do it. Jamal, do you have anything you want to add about conferences?
Yeah. So I recently, about a week, 2 weeks ago, got to go to Sakura, which is the Southern Atlantic affiliate of college residence halls and housing, something like that. It's a very long acronym, but it was a very fun time for me to be able to go and kind of use what I've experienced in housing. I've never worked in housing before, so it was great to go to a conference where the main focus was housing and see what was going on in the field, kind of learn a thing or two about residence hall associations and things of that nature, since I'm in charge of the one in my current building right now. I got it paid for through housing, and so I didn't have any money come out of my pockets, and I was just very fortunate to be able to go. It was in Orlando this year, and it was a lot of fun, so I'm just glad that I was able to kind of, in my first semester, take an opportunity to go to a conference and kind of get my feet wet and go and learn something on the kind of graduate level side as opposed to undergraduate level. Also, I see the chat. I can't respond to stuff in the chat right now, so I see you asking questions, but we'll get to those later on.
Awesome. Yeah, we actually are just becoming aware of the chat, which is interesting. And this is what you deal with, I guess, of dealing with a Hangout for the first time. And so we'll try to answer some of these right now pretty quickly. Someone asked, are there any social justice classes to challenge perspectives of students in the program? So which one of you wants to answer that? Don't all jump at once. Okay, Chris.
The biggest class where that would be occurring is your multiculturalism class, which you take in the spring of your first year. And assuming Dr. McCoy doesn't revamp the curriculum, you'll spend several weeks on different issues in oppression, whether that you'd be spending a couple weeks on race, a couple weeks on gender identity and sexual identity, but then also class and religious identity. And I think those are the big ones. But there was many tough conversations happened in there, or deep ones. I don't know about if tough is the right word that I wanted to use there, but it was definitely challenge provoking. One of the assignments we did was a photo essay in which we had to take photos of what was around us. When I did mine, I took pictures of my spring break trip and examined the different ways when I saw privilege and oppression around me when I was in Washington, D.C. and Virginia. But that was a good experience for me. And sometimes diversity and social justice is woven into the other classes too, particularly student development theory, and the others can almost be what you make it. You can definitely have those conversations in higher ed law, or the topics you choose to investigate in research methods could do that for you too. Do you have anything to add, Mary Kate? No? Okay, so I'll turn it back over to Brittany.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. Okay, we'll try to answer these other questions pretty quickly. The next one was saying, what would you say makes your program unique? So, we'll give that to Mary Kate.
I think that one of the things that makes our program unique, and we hear it time and time again, is the intimate cohort model that we have. Ours is, like Brittany said, 17 right now, and Jamal, yours is 22? 22, yeah, 22. So compared to a lot of other schools, that is quite small, and I think that for us that brings us closer together to have some of these conversations, to get a little bit closer and create a community. And then for us to have those one-on-one type of relationships with our professors, that smaller cohort model also helps us to maintain that, that intimacy with them, that amount of time that they have where they can communicate with us on a one-on-one basis. So for me, I think that that is what sets ours apart and made it feel so welcoming and so so much like a community when I came to interview weekend, and it's lived up to that. So anybody else? Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, MK. Okay, the next one was, are there any assistantship opportunities in leadership development or student athlete leadership development? There are in leadership development. So we actually have a whole office that's known as the Center for Leadership and Service, which literally all they do is stuff involving leadership development and service opportunities. And there will be, as far as I know, at least one assistantship opportunity there next year. So that'll be up for grabs, and it's a really awesome office to work in, of course, but also there's a lot of practicum opportunities through it. So I know myself, Mary Kate, and several others in the cohorts have taught leadership classes or co-taught leadership classes through the leadership minor here for undergrads, which is a good way to kind of tie that in if you want the leadership development experience but might not have the assistantship. There aren't any currently in student athlete leadership development, but there are some in rec sports, which you could probably find opportunities to tie leadership development into, but we don't have any that are solely for student athlete leadership development. The last question is, how is interview weekend? And Jamal is the most recent to have gone through it, so I'll have him answer that one.
So for me, out of all of the interview weekends that I went to, this one was by far my favorite. I really enjoyed just the way it was run. Shout out to Brittany because she was the one who organized it. But I really did like the aspect that it was scheduled in a way where it didn't feel like it was too much. We got to see a lot of the campus. They even took us on a trip throughout Knoxville, so we got to see the city. We got to meet with a lot of our future professors. We had a mock class. It was just really a great experience where I was able to connect with a lot of people who ended up in the cohort, some who didn't, but still were able to make those great connections with future student affairs leaders and practitioners. As you probably will hear time and time again, the field is kind of small, so you'll probably run into these people many times. And it was just a great experience for me. I had a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it again this year from the other side.
It'll be less stressful from the other side, hopefully. So someone asked, are there any potential opportunities to work in the area of Title IX? We do have assistantships in student conduct. I'm not sure if there'll be any openings next year. Kind of, that's one of those to be determined offices. However, our law professor is the Title IX coordinator for the university. So we learn a lot about not just Title IX and her position, but a lot surrounding it, issues in higher ed surrounding Title IX. So there most likely may be practicum opportunities, actually. I don't know of anyone in our cohorts that have explored that, but that could be something, if you're interested, that probably is something you could look to pursue. Our law professor is fantastic and probably would love to work with CSP students more in that area. It's a very interesting area to learn about, and we've been learning a lot about it. Well, hopefully we've answered a bulk of your questions. Like I said, we'll leave it with a tidbit of advice. So if each three of you, starting with Chris, ending with Jamal, maybe want to give a tidbit of advice involving applications, whether that's our application or others, or as they're heading into interview weekend.
Okay, so I guess I have a couple tips that jump to my mind as I'm thinking about applications. So definitely be yourself, be your best self, but don't be someone that you're not. You don't want them to be surprised when you get here about the person they've admitted. So that's one, and always have lots of eyes. I guess this is me putting my practicum hat on. If you're in undergrad still, utilize your Center for Career Development or Career Services. they're going to be great at looking at those personal statements too, because they function in much the same way that a cover letter does. So utilize them, because often I think that no one thinks about them as being a resource for you as you're applying to graduate school. As far as interview weekends go into each of them with an open mind about what you're going to feel about it, whether or not you want to be there, those kinds of things. I know for me, Knoxville and UT was not at the top of my list before my interview weekend started, but it quickly shot to the top as it exceeded my expectations, and others fell short. There were places that I won't name that I was surprised by the surrounding city, or I had a different vision of what campus or their program was like before I got there. So definitely go into each of them with an open mind, because you might end up in a place that you don't necessarily expect. In a good way, I hope, because that's how I feel about UT and Knoxville. Mary Kate, your turn.
Yeah, so as far as the interview weekend, and this may just kind of be shadowing off of my experience with sorority recruitment, but go into it with an open mind as far as the places that you're interviewing with, the offices that you're interviewing with, and the people that you interact with. Just like Chris mentioned with schools, you could go in thinking, I will work in this office because it's so great, it's what I have the most experience in, and I'm so jazzed about this one thing. But then the assistantship or the people that you're interacting with from another office could totally blow you away, and just kind of go with your gut feeling on that, because they probably are feeling the same way too if you two are vibing in an interview together, because generally things work out for the best when you both kind of go with your gut feeling like that. So go in with an open mind. Jamal, to you.
For me, I think the best advice that I could give that really helped me is just don't get so caught up on requirements, if you will. So for me, I know that I didn't have the GPA or GRE scores that a lot of people were requesting for applications, but those are only small parts to a whole. Your experiences and what you can possibly learn and what you can do here in the program will speak a lot more than how you did on a test and what happened there. I mean, still, like, do as well as you can, but just don't get so caught up on, oh man, I'm 1 point off, I can't apply here or there because of such reasons, or you start psyching yourself out. For me, I know that I really had to think about, if this is someplace that I really want to be, I'll apply there, and whatever will happen, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. So it was one thing that I just really had to sit down and say that I've had a lot of great experiences. I know that I can do well here, and just not getting caught up in the logistics, if you will. So still do what you can to improve those things, but don't get so caught up in them.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. I completely echo everything they've said. It's a stressful process, like I said, but make sure, I guess my tidbit would be self-care. You're going to hear that a lot in the field of student affairs, but it's super, super important. Take care of yourself as you go into those stressful interview weekends and filling out applications. Make sure you're getting plenty of sleep, eating, still paying attention to your schoolwork. So don't let the future the idea of the future ruin your present or anything like that. So still take time for yourself. And as always, don't be afraid to ask questions. So obviously we hold things like this to answer those questions, but always feel free to reach out to us, whether that's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, through our email, anything like that. Any of us are more than happy to answer any questions you have at any time. So I'll just leave you with the last little details. Applications are due December 1st, which is coming up pretty darn quick. So make sure you are getting in all of your application materials including your transcripts. Make sure you're really taking time to answer those application questions, things like that. And then interview weekend is going to be February 16th through the 18th. So mark your calendars in case you are trying to figure out what interview weekends you'll be able to go to, depending on what schools you get accepted to. But hopefully we look forward to seeing some of you here on Rocky Top, and we're happy that we got to share some time with you all and answer your questions. Once again, our email is CSPA, also known as CSPA, or the College Student Personnel Association, CSPA at utk.edu, and we'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Thanks, y'all, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye.